G'day tubers, welcome back. Today is a bit of a repair video and a review video all wrapped up in one. Today we have an Andonstar Digital Microscope. It comes with 3 lenses, comes with a micro SD card, cables for HDMI, so it goes back to a computer capture card or a television screen. With fine adjustment, comes with a stand and a couple of lights. So far, my initial thoughts was, it's a toy. And this can be told by my 11-year-old son grabbing it and then starting the video without me. Get out of here. Starting the video without me.
Hello, we'll be unboxing this digital microscope today. Let's get started. It looks like we have the monitor.
I'm going to release pretty much unedited that video below, so if you want to go and check it out, it'll probably be a private video, but he'll be a happy kid. Right, so today we'll be actually doing proper repairs. I've got some jobs to do. So I've got a Nintendo Switch here that won't charge. We've got his Nintendo Switch here. I can't fix it unless it's here.
You need to fix the dock.
Yeah, the dock, it won't dock. So this one, me and him put together a few months back. We spent a couple of weekends getting about 8 old consoles and making one work, and he quite enjoyed that. So one last thing we've got to do, we've got to get it to work on the dock, and then we've got a PS5 HDMI port. As much as possible, I'm going to try and use the Anonstar Digital Microscope to actually achieve that. Now, so far after a week and a half of using it, the bloody thing's fantastic. It really does work. It has high resolution for what I can see, and is quick, so I can grab that, I can throw it there, and I can have a really quick look at the actual screen. I don't have to set up anything extra.
Very nice quality.
It is good quality. So it just works. So let's get after these. Let's pull these apart and get started. We do yours first? Right, let's do this. My son's Nintendo Switch is turned on and working. You plug it in, it starts charging and then turns the screen off, but does not display up on the screen on the television. Okay, pop the controllers off, press the little button, slide up, press the little button, slide up, turn it off, hold the power button in, power options, power off, shutting it down, it's gone. Rightio. So to open this up, you need a tri-wing. I don't know what size it is, but it's a little tiny tri-wing for the 4 screws in the corner. Then you lift up the little leg, and then you get a small Phillips head. Lift up that, take your memory card out. Almost forgot the memory card. If you leave the memory card in, it sort of lifts it up and does bad things. And then you go to the end and you do the middle one on either side where your controllers sit in. Pull them out and the back cover will pop straight off. And I think we've got about 6 little silver screws that go in here. There's sort of a bit of a flat top on them. What is they? They're fine thread Phillips heads. Pop off the card reader, the memory card reader. Other 2 screws out there. I think there's one in the middle I've missed. Just by the fan here. Pop that out. Jump the cover off. Plenty of thermal paste there. It looks like just the right amount was put on by us when we reassembled it. We just added a bunch of extra. So when you're lifting these little cables up, be really super careful. I really don't want to have to do any extra work here. I'm just going to rip this apart, come back in a second when I've got it all out. Forgot one. Oh yeah, let's pull that out. This is where this little microscope really shines. I can just hit record and I can send it all out to you guys nice and easily. And plus I can see it well. And I can also see a little bit better. Let's put that in focus a little bit. We can see potentially how poorly I did that job. It doesn't look like I've got anywhere near enough solder into those legs. The legs anchor it to the board there. And now this was one of the very first ports that I did. It had lots of problems. It was wet, the screen needed replacing, there was bits broken off the board, it had prior repair attempts, including by me. But what we're going to do, we're just going to heat that up a little bit. We'll put it on this little mount. We're just going to try and reflow that, and I reckon that's going to come good. I think we just did a really poor job of putting that on. When I say we, it was actually me. So there's no blaming anybody else on this one. You can put that right in the middle there. We'll grab some flux. Just drop a little bit of flux. Hopefully it flows underneath that port. Now for the sake of the video, I'm just going to bring my quick, what is it, 861DW over this side of the bench because we need some heat. Now hopefully if I just work the heat around the back side of that port, not directly onto the port. I want to warm up the board. You've got to be careful of all the little plastic components around the place. Drop a little bit of heat onto that. Hopefully that's all we need to do to fix this port. Give it a little bit of downward pressure. Pull the heat away. That looks to be better. Now I have only done a few repairs directly underneath this device, and I do find it quite the learning challenge going from the conventional microscope to this. But I have a solution, because I don't think this is something that I need to do every time. Those pins are pretty good. I might just grab the soldering iron. Now it got enough heat in there to pull the solder through that port there, through that leg. So I'm confident we've got enough heat underneath it. Now we'll bring the Hakko FX, what is it, 50951 with a little tiny itsy bitty tip on there. And I'm showing you on that screen when I can easily show you on this one. So we'll just go through, we'll put a bit more flux on there. Wow, I tell you what, my bench is destroyed. I really like to keep a little bit of law and order about my bench. Now there is another row of pins behind this, and I just have to assume that these ones look okay, so the ones behind it will be okay as well. If this doesn't work, I'll have to pop the port off and put another one on. I don't think this step is overly necessary, but maybe it is. They're all soldered down well. Even before they were soldered down alright, but given there was no real solder flowed through those legs, I'm assuming that it may have just been a little bit weak. And I can guarantee you, Nintendo Switches are not my strong point. I guarantee you. So, those solder joints, they don't look terrible. I mean, there's plenty of solder there. it's a cold morning and the old Hacko with the small tip is not wanting to play the game. This is much larger tip, positively huge tip, but that'll flow that solder through there much better. And I'm finding I'm sitting far too close to the actual microscope itself. Maybe that is a bad thing. If I sit back a little bit, I find I can actually see that screen a lot better. Maybe I need to reposition those lights. It's actually handy having those little lights there. I'm on a small platform. I'm working on actually changing that. So solder that one in. Get some solder flowing through the board so it anchors that leg in nice and firmly. And that should be done, I hope. So we'll go through a bit of a clean up. I'll see if I can give you a better view of that even. I'm going to try and give you, if I can, every other video, a tip on how to do this, well, things that I've learnt, and cleaning the board off. So I've already done a bit of a good clean, so there's not much more to show you. But you've got a whole heap of flux and stuff around here, right? So you use a bit of IPA or what is it? Isopropylene IPA, not sure what it's called. I wet it down a little bit and then just get a bit of cheap toilet paper and then you wipe it across. And the idea is to dry the board a little bit. It pulls the IPA off the board while drying it and also pulls all the gunk off. So once you've done it, it does come up. Haha, look at this. It does come up nice and clean. We have a look on the other side. Really got to get used to actually showing you under here because that's what it's for. You can see we've got solder all the way through those legs now. Those pins are all nicely soldered on. And then the front legs, we've got plenty of solder coming through the board. So I hope that is enough. And I'm assuming the actual problem is those legs that you can see there, through there, the little, what are they, copper. I'm hoping that they're actually soldered to the board well. So I think they're the problem. So let's throw that back together. Oh yeah, try again. Turn it on. See if we've got a screen. Okay, we've got a screen. Wasn't plugged in properly. Turn it on. Plug it in. Console 82%. It is charging, which is great. So we'll plug it in and hopefully it slides down, turns the screen off here, and hopefully we've got something up there now. Okay, so that didn't work, so we're going to pull it apart again and take another look. It could also be that PI chip, but I'm fairly sure what is it, it could also be that P3 USB chip, but I'm fairly sure if that doesn't work, the whole console won't power up. There's a bit of crud on that. That has been replaced as well, so I've replaced that chip there. I've done the charging chip here, as you can probably see because it's still dirty, and then I've done this M92 chip as well. So they're all my early solders and they're not too bad. The chip looks square on there, but this one here does have a little bit of rubbish on it. I don't know if that could cause the problem or not. That doesn't look bad, it just looks dirty. Being an all-in-one unit and not having the actual the stand separate and having the base as part of where you actually working surface, it's not very stable. It's not bad, but I did notice it on the screen a lot more watching back on a bigger monitor. The vibrations are much more noticeable. So I gave that a bit of a clean up, and I would not say that that was a problem. So we'll go through, we'll pop that port off. It doesn't really take that long. And we'll put a new one on. Drop a bit of flux on it again. I'm thinking I should have dropped a bit of flux down there. Maybe that would have got it to stick to the board a little bit better. Out of interest, I did try flipping the cable over when I tested it, end for end or side for side. So I'll add a little bit of heat to that. Thank you very much, car revving as you go past. I'll do this in real time so you can see how long it takes to actually pull off. Again, I'm way too far away. I'm putting it back here so you can see, but it's a good inch actually away, and we need that heat much more locally. Might be able to throw it off from the side. You can just see that solder wetting down in the top left hand corner there. So we're just going to get some heat into it pretty quick. And that port should fall away naturally. You don't want to put too much heat into it. On the same token, you've got to put enough heat so those pins on the other side of the board wet down. There we go. And she falls off. Now if we have a look at that pin, those pins at the back, the ones we can't see, we can see that pretty much, oh no, we got one at the end there that, no, they all look like they got solder. So I'm pretty confident that that was correctly soldered down as well. So we'll put that off to one side. We'll flip that over and get that board cleaned up, see if there's any shorts. Not that there should be any. This has all got newish solder. Where are we going? There we go. Come on, beep. There we go. Come on, up you come. The board has cooled down a lot. And so's the day, as it turns out. Again, I find myself too close to the actual screen. Almost doesn't look like it's working. It's starting to twinkle a little bit. Maybe it's pulling it out. Oh yeah, there we go. I don't think I need that little hole cleaned out there. Oh, there we go. Two front holes are good to go. We'll give that another clean up. We'll set that new port in there. You can see the whole unit moving just a little bit under pressure. Don't quite like that, but I guess it is, you know, what I'm dealing with. It's sort of a smaller, cheaper microscope. It's not like a dedicated unit. That's good enough for me. All those filters and everything are in place. So we'll grab the new port, we'll whack it on the top there and we'll float it on. A brand new port there, nice and clean. I'm off two minds whether I should be tinning that or not. I think not tinning it gives you an idea on how much it worked or not. Sort of when you pulled the old one off, you can sort of see the difference. I'll see if I put them end to the end for you. So you can see that the tin's gone all the way up, or at least discoloured each one of them. There we go. Where's the light? You can sort of see on this one. Yeah, every pad's got solder on it, so I'm happy enough with that. Maybe it was okay. Maybe it's something else. I'll bias the back a little bit so you can't see the front just a little bit, and I'll just lift that port off. I'll heat that up just until we see that solder start to go wet. I really hope I can improve on trying to tell you what I'm doing, share the love, so to speak, or hopefully. I mean, I wonder if that jiggling is actually from the heat. That's actually heat distortion and not the camera. I can see it wiggling and woggling around a little bit, if that's even a word. Oh, that was a bit slow. Starting to melt the plastic a bit there. I probably could have turned the voltage, the temperature down just a little bit. Really not too concerned if it melts a little bit. That's actually a lot of bit by the look of that. But that should be well attached to the board now, I'd say. There's some pretty good solder points. I gotta say, I'm struggling with this. I definitely think it'll be something I'll get used to, but in the short term, let's flip it over and see if it flowed through to those legs. Yep, we got some good flow through to those legs. The front ports, excellent. That looks way better than my last attempt. A little bit too much heat. You can sort of see around here I've melted the plastic, but I honestly don't think that that's gonna hurt too much. I could do that better next time though, I reckon. So, well, you just got out here in time, mate. It's not doing what we need it to do. So I don't know if that will work when it's not all plugged in, but that's plugged into a battery now. You have a look at the charger. It's charging on one side, and then if I flip it over and of course you guys can't see this. Oh, it's charging on both sides now. I don't get it. I don't get it. Alright, I'm going to put this back together again, and we're going to hope. Cross your fingers. You reckon we're going to get it? You hope we're going to get it. Alright, let's throw this back together. Start the time lapse. Righto, and the time lapse. That's sort of put back together again. Wait a minute, I might put one screw into the fan just to make sure it doesn't fall out when I'm moving it around. I'll remove what's left of my hair on the board.
Maybe you have to put in the memory card as well.
I shouldn't have to put the memory card in. Turn it on. Okay, screen works. I've got a funny feeling it's Pi 3 USB. Or Pi 3 USB. Check signal cable. That's nothing at all now. It is definitely charging, which is good. Now pull it back off. What does that say? Could not connect to the TV. Make sure you're using AC adapter supplied with the console. Oh, that's a win. Now I'm going to assume that this is 19 volts and that little charger thing is only 12 volts max. Come for a bumpy ride with me. Okay. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. Cannot connect to the TV. Okay. Let's plug it in there. Come on. Check signal cable. That's... It was charging. Okay, so we're the next day. Unfortunately, my son's console, that was a no fix at this point. I do have some PI 3 USB chips, and I believe that to be the fault, so I will change that in the future. However, I have to get a couple of paid jobs done, so let's move forward a bit. I already have the next job all pulled apart, and I've also cleaned my bench a little bit because I had everything pulled out so I could do things. And I've moved the Anonstar over this side of the bench, trying to work out how to lay it out and worked. I'm really realizing after that last video, that last half an hour for you and 3 hours for me, of using this device, this little digital microscope. I love it. I absolutely love it, and that's just not because I got given it for free. Just after I started using it on this side of the bench, I started taking some shots inside this port here. I'll show you now, so I can show you how that port is actually damaged. It's going to be a handy tool, and if I had that screen sort of down here, and I'll have to do that later, I don't have the time to do it now, so I've had a big screen sort of a little bit lower so I don't have to strain my neck. I really think I could get really used to using this rather than my $1,000 microscope back in the day. Probably not worth that now. So we've already got this pulled apart. We know the problem is with the port here. There's no shorts on the board, so I'm going to sweat that off, get that off, put a new one on, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, so we're back under the Andonstar Digital Microscope, so you can have a look. I'll hit record. So have a look here. I've cleaned all that up. All the ports look good. What do you call it? All the leg holes look good. All nice and cleaned out. This one's a bit sloppy, but it's not too bad. All the pins look fantastic on that one. And we flip it over, and we're all nice and clean. So we'll throw the next port on there. And on the way I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. I've had a look at some videos on YouTube. I'm going to heat it from the bottom rather than the top, and hopefully we don't melt that port quite so much this time. Now I'm positive this would be better recorded underneath the digital microscope, but this is a customer's job, so I really need to make sure that I do it as close to perfect as possible. So I'm going to put that on there so that sits in there nicely. I'm going to turn on my hot air station, and you're going to hear a little bit of wind. We're going to turn it down a bit. Put to 400 degrees. Throw that underneath. I almost don't have enough length in my cable. I'm actually sure more heat would be better with that, so it'll be quicker. Now, for a little bit of transparency, I did do this underneath the microscope. I just don't have the soldering equipment over this side anymore. I had to put it back for the old day job. You can have a look at that and see, you can see all of those leg holes are filled nicely. We've got some good solder on those legs at the back there, those pins. Have a look at the other side and it shows a problem. Just a little bit too much heat again on the back side. So you just move where the problem is. So the solder seems to have flowed really well on that job, so we'll throw it back together and I just hope we can actually test the dock. Okay, battery appears to be dead flat. It is 3.9 volts. So that should be fine. Unplug that. Plug that back in again. Plug the charger in. Yeah, boy. 12 volts, 0.6 of an amp. Giddy up. Or jump to 9 volts. And then 1.2 off camera, so I unplug that. You can see me in the reflection of the tub almost. Plug that back in. 9 volts, 1.2 amps. Giddy up. That one is fixed. Let's try it on the dock anyway. We've got the genuine USB power adapter into that and HDMI. Pull it out. She is now at whatever percentage that was. I missed it. It goes out. But guess what? The dock is doing docking things. That's a win. Let's get to the PS5. Something doesn't sound right in there. I've never heard of that before, but that solves the problem of where the noise was coming from. We'll take a look at this under here. There we got. You can see the damage there, chipped off the end, and the typical, I've ripped the cable out and stretched the bottom of the port there, the little, I don't call that a weakness point, fault point maybe. We know what we got to do 10 minutes in, and it did only take 10 minutes to pull that apart and get all that out. Up on the preheater, just give it a little bit of extra warmth. Will help that port come straight off. and that's a little bit messy. You can see the little capacitor there. I knocked that off twice in a row. I will fix the rest of that when the port's on. It'll all flow back nicely, and also when I go back onto the preheater, that'll flow those holes out. I'll be able to sucker them out. So I'll throw that back on and put that port on, and we'll be good to go. Can I put it underneath there? I can hold that up. Hit record. And that looks like a proper job. Unfortunately, my fingers were getting a bit burnt. Plug some power. Grab the HDMI port out of that Nintendo Switch. Plug that one in. The power button. And let's see what we got. Come on. Maybe it's doing a repair. So she was just doing a repair. That's another successful repair. And on that, I got to give this Anonstar, I think I've got the pronunciation right at the beginning of this video, end of this video. We got 2 out of 3. My sons will work on that. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.